Chapter 24. Mom asked me to walk to her brother's house to tell Cousin Tan the news. I took the narrow road through the green fields. The fresh sea wind made the young rice dance and woke up my dizzy mind, still dazed with the intoxicating news. Cousin Tan was holding court at his house with a few of his classmates from AU. I heard carefree laughter as I entered. They were having tea. I wanted to drop the bomb and have AU boys running for cover. Tad stood up as I came through the door. Smart guy, he sensed something. "Did you hear anything?" he asked. I stood there, trying to catch my breath. "Is it bad news?" he asked anxiously. I shook my head. I didn't want to seem too eager to impress a bunch of AU guys, all of whom were proudly wearing their white and red school badges. "Chen got 350, I said. "Well, that's very high." Tan knitted his intellectual brows together with disbelief. "How about you?" I took a deep breath. "You didn't make it?" He started to smile and stretch out his uncalloused hands to press me with his subtle condolence. I knew that look. My score was 380. All of his cronies stood up. "What did you say?" Tan didn't believe his ears. 380, I repeated. Silence. "You gotta be kidding," Tan said absent-mindedly, making a readjustment in his mind. "I'm sure AU would consider you for their famous English department." "Give me a break, Tan," said one of his classmates. "This fellow does not want to go to a college isolated on a little island in the corner of China. It's okay for a bunch of older guys to study finance there, but for English, he should and could go to big cities like Beijing or Shanghai." I thought about all the options, I said diplomatically. "I'm sure AU would be an excellent choice also." I didn't want to hurt Tan's pride. After all, I still loved and respected my cousin. He had paved the road for Jen and I and had given us hope when we were just another landlord's family waiting to be wasted by communism. I said goodbye to them and told them I wanted to take a long nap. They laughed and saw me to the door, slapping my shoulder in congratulation. Cousin Tan affectionately pinched the back of my neck. Coming from a bunch of college men, I considered that the red carpet treatment. I was one of the boys now. In a single moment, I had arrived. I took the same route back home to avoid being stared at in the street. By now, Yellowstone would be like dry hay aflame with the breaking news about the Chen boys. Having one child in the family going to college was an eye-opener, but two at the same time. The town wouldn't be able to sleep for a long while. The shock would be reverberating through the people by now. Some people in Yellowstone wouldn't be able to take such an insulting assault on their turf. Two landlords' children hitting the jackpot at the same time? No way. There would be hostile letters of protest, ghostwritten and sent anonymously to the Board of Education, filled with big fat lies, aiming to try to stop us. There would be people gritting their teeth at this very moment, swearing to poke a hole in our balloon and let our dream be just another dream. I knew it was coming, and that we should appear modest and unserving in the public. Mom shut the front door early and prepared a simple dinner. We moved our dining table to the backyard. Everyone was whispering as we sat at the table and prepared the food. My sisters had left work early. The young rice plants could wait, but the celebration could not. We sat together around the table, all seven of us. It was a little crowded, and we kicked each other under the table and fought with our chopsticks for the last bite, as we had when we were children. We whispered and laughed quietly. At least there were ears listening outside the walls. It was okay to let people know you were suffering, but not when you were celebrating. They turned jealous, and evil things were bred from seeds of jealousy. Dad smiled like a carefree lion, smoking his pipe, while Mom still sniffled over the shock of the news. It had shaken her up in a very pleasant way. They both confessed that it was the best day of their lives. They were so happy and proud. It made their decades of suffering worthwhile. Our sisters poked us with challenging questions like, which pretty girls would you consider as brides? We went through a list of mock interest. None of them seemed perfect. The appealing ones didn't have the cows necessary for a dowry, while the ugly ones had plenty. Our sister giggled and giggled over our silly discussion. We dreamed and sat there just staring at the perfect Yellowstone sunset. We were given an application form to fill out along with a list of open slots to Fujian students at all of the colleges. The slots for English majors were pathetically few. From the top down, there was only one at Beijing First Foreign Language Institute and two at the Beijing Second Foreign Language Institute. There was one opening at Shanghai Foreign Language Institute and a few more at other cities like Nanjing and Fuzhou, and 20 at Amoy University. There were other tempting slots in foreign trade and international journalism, both of which required a strong English performance. My counselor advised me that my score put me in the top 2% of all applicants. Any college I picked would be mine. My brother's score also qualified him for a leading university. He had his mind set on finance, and his university choices were all near home. He wanted to be close to family, but they fully supported my choice. Beijing First Foreign Language Institute, the top spot of that year's roster. I was the bird that had to fly far and high, and they wanted me to reach for the sky because they thought I could. And now they, too, were beginning to think that I could. I turned in my application at the commune headquarters, an office near the commune jail, which the principal of my elementary school had once wanted to put me. The lady clerk smiled at me when she saw my name and choice. You are the star they've been talking about. I have heard your story. I want my son to do just as well as you did. Would you mind meeting him? She asked. Sure. She stood up and went to the back room and brought out a 2-year-old toddler. Shake hands with him, son. She grabbed her son's chubby, sticky hand, and I shook it. The kid was a little shy. I pinched his rosy cheek. Thank you. I hope he remembers meeting you. I felt flattered. Overnight, I had become the model son to all moms. I headed out. She stopped me. Here, I've got something for you. Take these and burn them. There were a dozen badly written, lying letters of protest against Chen and me. I ran behind the headquarter building and found a seat beneath a tree. I went through all the letters quickly. The most ridiculous accusation was a claim that Chen and I had cheated by swapping answers in the public toilets during an exam. Yeah, right. Chen and I had taken the test 40 miles apart. Others claimed that we were from a landlord's family that didn't deserve to be in college. Old cliches and other garbage. One letter said that my brother had poor eyesight and then I hung out with bad company. That was true, but did it matter? 2 days later, I got a notice from the county that said we had to have a complete physical examination. I didn't eat or sleep too well that night. My eyes would be too weak, my legs too short. I had no muscle, and I was all bones. My belly button was too deep, my nipples too far apart, my ribs heaved like an accordion. Why would our country want to invest 4 years of college in such a shaky person? We went on to the commune's muddy tractor. There were no showy flowers pinned on our chest or anything like that. We arrived at Putian County Hospital a little late because we had to fill the gas tank, and the driver had to stop to push a fallen tree to the side of the narrow road, then had brawled for a good 10 minutes with the farmer who owned the tree. The nurse rushed us through a minor check, then asked us to take off all of our clothes. Our clothes? Yeah, now my brother and I squirmed uncomfortably. We finally stood there in our underwear, the last shred of our male dignity hanging loose. What's the matter? Come on, drop it. I don't have all day. There's 100 female applicants waiting for me. that set us flying. We faced the wall and dropped our protection. We stared at each other with goosebumps crawling all over our body like ants. It was the first time we had seen each other naked. The nurse's cold hands ran over a few things. Then she took off her plastic gloves and looked with a disgusted look, tossed them into the garbage can, and washed her hands. Had we passed? I guess nothing's missing, Jen said, pulling up his shorts. I guess so. Mom and Dad made us right and whole. We laughed, and we were out of the exam room in a second. Not surprisingly, Jen got some generous proposal for marriages from the beauties of Yellowstone and beyond. There were nurses, teachers, sales clerks, secretaries, and actresses. Jen showed no interest. He wanted to consider marriage only after college, but Mom, Dad, and our sisters were having a terrific time going through the list, studying them as if for real. They even broke into serious arguments over merits of their personal choices. Some of the girls on the list shied away whenever they passed our house, acutely aware that they were being scrutinized. One night, a pretty girl with no more than 7 or 8 ran to our house and said that her dad was inviting me to her house to watch television. There was a special program on that night. The invitation came out of the blue. The girl turned out to be the youngest daughter of the party secretary of our commune. He was the only person in Yellowstone to have a TV, 9-inch black and white one, which he proudly placed on top of the table in the front yard. In the evenings, he would invite the town's small group of dignitaries to watch nightly programs starting at 7 and ending at 11. Receiving an invitation from him to witness the magic of the 9-incher was like being given a personal seal of approval. The next day, the whole town would know who was there and why. My mom, obviously flattered by the invitation, and asked me to take a long bath and put on my best white shirt, a new pair of sandals. I had dinner early, then strolled over to the bridge to his walled estate. There were about 50 people sitting, standing, squatting outside the gate. They were there in hope that the party secretary might be in a generous mood and let them in. If not, they would be perfectly content sitting outside the wall all night long, listening to the TV as though it were a radio. The crowd parted as I strolled through the throng. The party secretary stood at the door, fanning away flies with a dried coconut leaf. His pot belly barely covered his shorts. He welcomed me enthusiastically. There is a drama at 9 tonight, and I thought you might want to see it, he said. Thank you for the invitation. I love drama. I thought you would. I entered the door. Inside was another world. There were flowers in pots, a tea table, a lush sofa scattered around, and a stand where the TV proudly sat. Precious modern magic. It was the first time I had ever seen a television. The party secretary showed me to a prominent seat as all present stood up to meet me. I bowed to them like a spineless sucker. The party vice secretary and head of the commune's women's group, the head of the youth leaguers, a few good-looking ladies were there. I was embarrassed by the attention. The guys had hung my dad up by his thumbs a few years ago and locked my sister up for selling our clothing ration coupons. Had shortened my grandfather's life and made his last day in this world a living hell. Now they all smiled and shook hands with me, praising me for the high scores. I felt strange, but extraordinarily good. I sat down. A pretty young girl, the eldest daughter of the host, carried over a cup of steaming tea on an elegant tray and served me with a sweet smile. I took the tea with a humble heart, outwardly trying to be nonchalant. She sat beside me and explained the high technology of the 9-inch black box. I felt uneasy chatting with her. It was a challenge to conduct civil conversation without spilling my tea. The TV blinked all night, the reception was spotty, and when the thick clouds passed overhead, blurring it even more, the audience had to guess what was happening on the screen. It was a milestone in my book nonetheless. The daughter kept pouring tea, and I kept running to their bathroom. which left the rest of the crowd when the TV screen turned white with busy little dots. At home, Mom had waited up to question me about how I had been received. She wanted all the details. I gave her a full and complete report. She smiled with satisfaction.